Saints, this will be a meaningful and at some level quite serious lecture. LeJimmy writes, what's the best and fastest way to build a new roster after moving to a new city? Peace to the Saints. I would say the number one thing is first, you got to be clear. Is the truth that you want a roster, which are women that you're retaining, or is it you're trying to go ahead and get laid as quickly as possible because you're dry out there? You just got there. You need something to keep the bed warm. If it's a case of keeping the bed warm, the quickest solution is going to be a one night stand, which is most likely to occur in an alcohol fueled environment, which is where harlots frequent, namely nightclubs, bars, fraternity parties, things like this. If you're looking to actually build a solid roster for the long term, that's going to come from meeting women in places that usually have a membership fee or a cost to be there. More likely higher quality women, expensive gyms, yoga classes, salsa classes, college campuses, conferences, things like that. So those are the tools I would use to, make it happen. But remember, and matter of fact, I'll use this to get into the lecture, that you should be spitting game so much that you almost forget about the chicks. And here's a real life example. Recently, a buddy of mine and I were out at a resort and we saw two women initially. They appeared to be separate. One of them had that resting bitch face, and she was turbo thick though, so I was quite interested. Me, I like to observe them. If I see them before they see me and I have a little bit of time to observe, I like to observe, gather some data, refine my approach. So I'm looking at her. She looks very displeased, as though something bad has happened to her. And I happened to be walking behind her, and there was another young lady who was reasonably attractive, who was yet another 5 steps ahead of the girl I was interested in. As we were walking, we were about to catch up with the girl who had the mad face when the other girl in front turned around and started talking to her. And I realized they were together. I found it really strange that they were walking so far apart. Maybe they weren't getting along, but I could tell that they had a French accent. And so I made it a point to introduce myself and say, hey, I'm the mayor of Las Vegas, and you seem to be from out of town. I bet you're probably looking for something fun to do tonight. And they're like, yeah, we are. I say, okay, well, why don't you take down my information and I'll connect with you some activities you might like. Now, mind you, the conversation was a little longer than that. That's the short version. During the whole conversation, the physiognomy of both of them seemed rather disinterested. I didn't perceive any significant interest, which is why I kept it fairly brief. And I just gave them my business card and I said, holla at your boy. Long story short, 3 weeks later, I was looking for a message from one of my suppliers on WhatsApp, one of my factory suppliers. And while looking for that message, I noticed a message from a French name. And I clicked it, and it was the girl that I had met at that resort messaging me just hours after we had met saying, hey, Marquette, nice to meet you. What are you guys doing tonight? I never actually saw it when it came in because my ringer and notifications are off for all applications. I say that to say this. The moral of the story is when you're spitting such a high volume of game, you're going to forget about a couple of chicks here and there. And no one female or one set of females that you talk to really matters that much because you have volume. You see, you don't have to overvalue the girl. Further, as I've told you before, never tell yourself no and never doubt yourself because, in fact, those women looked disinterested when, in actual fact, they were quite interested. So much so that a mere 2, 3 hours after we met, they sent a note saying, what it do? Could we have smashed it that night? Absolutely. Why? Because they're from out of the country. And women, when they're on girls' trips, oh, it's no holds bars. Everything goes. Girls gone wild. You dig? So I actually missed that opportunity because I wasn't even thinking about her. I forgot about her. And it gets like that. That's the position that you want to be in. So what I'm saying to you is that you should be doing your 3-a-days and you should be spitting such a high volume of game that you have those situations where, chicks are just falling out your pocket. Forget about them. The first thing to the point I mentioned about the gentleman asking how to set up a stable is that you shouldn't have any missed opportunities. Sadly, human beings, we tend to doubt ourselves, and humankind, we're very fearful. It is a pity to be a fearful man, as I often remind you to go forward like a fearless lunatic. When you leave an opportunity as a missed opportunity, that usually comes because you looked at the woman, you didn't think she was interesting. You looked at her, you didn't think she thought you were good looking, or maybe you just didn't feel good looking. You didn't feel like you were dressed up and she was dressed up. Whatever the case was, it was a lack of confidence that caused you not to convert that opportunity. And let me let you in on a joke. It turns out that the woman is the one who decides if she's attracted or not. So when you tell yourself that she's not attracted, or you tell yourself that you're not going to be successful with her, you screwed yourself over. In my book, The Black Box, I say never tell yourself no. That's what my mother taught me. It was very wise. It's really a sales technique, but all of life is sales. So don't tell yourself no, make her tell you no. And here's the funny thing, a lot of the things you think are important, height, hair, clothing, money, nah, not the case. Your boy has no hair. Your boy been getting since he was broke. You dig? Your boy got one female, lovely young lady, who swears up and down I can't trust. She swears I'm the tackiest man on earth, but she still loved the big homie. You dig? It get like that. So I say that to say this to you. You got to go forward no matter what the circumstance is. You got to go forward. Huh? I'll be out here to win, my boy. Another thing I want to remind you guys of, when you're constantly doing your 3-a-days, bringing new women into your sphere of influence and spreading your name in the world, which is very wise, you then are empowered to be able to clean out the stable periodically, because as you add more women on a regular basis, now you can be selective and take the cream of the crop of your stable and not have to retain the other ones. You get to only deal with the best of them. And I can assure you, you'd be a goddamn fool to put up with a woman who's disrespectful, disobedient, and disagreeable. You might retain them for a moment, but eventually you should move them out. And let me let you know this. And this is something that my partner's uncle told us, super player. He said, never get rid of a woman until you've replaced her. You don't want to leave an empty slot in the stable. So, deal with her until you can get that replacement, but don't push her out and leave it empty. And the reason being, a woman's favorite cologne on a man is another woman's perfume. I'll say that one more time. That's a quotation from Marquettdavon Burton. A woman's favorite cologne on a man is another woman's perfume, which is to say they like to know that you got someone else. You dig? When they show up and start dealing with you, even though they might say they don't like a player, it's not true. They love a play. Ezekiel writes, how do you treat a broad like a side? Hit and dash? Question mark. Well, if you're talking about a side piece, that's not a hit and dash. A side piece is one you retain, but that's one that you never elevate. And it's not because you're a wicked person. You never elevate her because she's a wicked person. It's because she refuses to follow the ism. She is a woman who displays low characteristics, whether it's drug consumption, excessive drinking, horrific behavior, foolish thinking, hard-headedness, disobedience, dishonesty. She's displaying those traits, and that's why you never elevate her. Maybe she's very attractive. Maybe she's very enjoyable, brings a smile to your face, helps you laugh and get over challenging moments. She is like a coolness to you, but she is immoral, and that is why you don't elevate her. A side girl gets no dates, no gifts, no holidays, no trips, but they do get some hard, you know what? You dig? Yeah, man. Don't treat them, just beat them. You dig? Ray writes, thoughts on monogamy versus polygyny. Monogamy is fine for some. Polygyny is for the bosses. I know the latter. Women are shamed. So how can I ever find a healthy one to participate? You see, first, the woman must come to a knowledge of you. Once she has decided, or rather acknowledged, that you are a great man, then she will provide you what a great man is owed because he's earned it. Rob writes, peace to the Saints, big homie. Been slowing down and vetting this girl for a main. Congratulations. I'm glad to hear you got some good prospects. She meets a lot of my high standards. I don't feel attached. I feel like I can drop her at any time. Is something wrong with me? Maybe not. Maybe not. At the end of the day, you're in a much better position than if you were head over heels over the female, because that will steal your rationality. And what you have to do right now is keep your eyes open and stay alert, because women are very good when they're interested in a man at dissimulating and deceiving. And men, when they're sexually attracted, they're really good at believing the lies. Ezekiel writes, you should never be seen in public with a side piece. Why? Why not? I mean, really, everyone should be minding their own business at the end of the day. Camden writes, how can I influence women without them feeling like I'm trying to change or control them? Well, you might be trying to change and control them. In fact, I have a young lady now whom I don't want to say disappointed in her, but I'm disappointed to find that she's not who I wish she was. You see, and sometimes the best thing you can do is to say, hey, love, I got to let you know, I love you enough to let you be you. So I'm going to let you go. It gets like that. Sometimes they have just the right face and they have the personality. They make you laugh. You enjoy spending time, but the morals aren't there, or the obedience is not there, or there's some trauma that they can't get over that they're inflicting upon you. And you just have, as a man, have to accept it and be rational. That is our challenge as men, to be rational. One major piece of advice I can give you when dealing with females is to never speak negatively about females in front of a female. I said, don't ever speak negatively about females in front of a female. You might say, Marquett, well, why is that? Because the female, being deeply insecure inherently, and also being self-absorbed, focused on the self, she makes everything about her. So if you say something about women, somehow in her mind, it has something to do with her because she's insecure and self absorbed. And for that reason, you would be wise to, in general, speak positively because you're a saint and it speaks well of you. But be thoughtful when you're around a woman, for they have good memories and they will take what you said about women and apply that to themselves. And they will take negative things you've said, remember it, and bring it up when it's least appropriate just to win an argument. It's comical, isn't it? Rob writes, big homie, can you describe a woman that could reach the highly sought position of the Saint City mayor's wife? You know what? I think if you add together all of my works on what it is to be a good woman, the rules that I identify in terms of relationships and dating, the accumulation of those things would identify that woman. But above all, let me say that she has goodness and purity in her above all, which is that she looks out in the world and she's not looking at people with negativity. She's not prone to jealousy. She's positive, optimistic, and also believes that she deserves good things. And also, there are good things that other people deserve. She has to be a very elevated woman with significant emotional intelligence to be able to deal with life in the spotlight, to deal with the pressures of success, and also to deal with a character like your boy. So those are kind of some of the short pieces, but there's a lot of elaboration. I even have a video on Marquettdavon, and it's called A Bad Bee versus a Good Woman. And I identify some of the differences. And one thing I always remind is that I have no interest in a bad bee. I've enjoyed them in the droves around the world, but I'm more interested in a good woman, and this is very rare. Point number 3, you should always ask yourself, not always, actually, in fact, hopefully just one time, ask yourself this question. Is it easier to train or to search with regards to women? Is it easier to train, meaning to teach her, to condition her, to influence her, or to search, meaning to find the woman who already is values aligned, a woman who's already living with some level of ism within her? So what I'm saying is you can find a woman who's a fixer upper. You got to invest a lot of education and knowledge in her. You got to hope she's soaking it up intellectually. Then you have to hope that she's a woman of action and she's actually going to apply it and stick to the script. Or you could search, meaning keep doing volume, meeting a lot of women until you meet the one who is already aligned because her father was a good leader and her father conditioned her and raised her up in the right way. So there's very little that you have to teach her. She's already been taught. It is. And that's why historically the father gives away his daughter to the husband, which is almost like a gift. Like, hey, I worked on this. Now I'm giving it to you. It's already really well developed. You just got to put the finishing touches on it to say, just put the cherry on top of the cake. It's already here. You see, but nowadays, these fathers, whether they're absentee or they were present and they were beta males, they're really handing you a wreck, handing you a hot mess. Really, you should charge them. You dig? So I say that to say this to you. Training a female requires that she actually submits to the training and is able to do something that most people cannot do, which is to change, which is to apply knowledge. Rather, you want to search for a female. Now, this too has a level of work, but the work is different in nature. What it means is that when you're searching for the right woman, you have to spit a lot of game. You have to be out there. You have to invest some time to get your reputation out, to meet women, and then you will profit. So both require work, but it's a different nature of work. And one requires work up front, whereas the other one requires work for the whole duration of the marriage or relationship. I'd much rather engage in the searching process. I say that to you guys because often people ask me, well, Marquette, how do I influence this girl? It's much better if you don't have to, right? It's much better if instead of teaching her something, you're just reminding her. You dig? If she falls off track, you don't have to teach her what the right thing is. You just remind her, like, hey, you remember how you were raised? Your father taught you to do it like this, or your mother taught you to do it like this. Let's get back to that. That's an easier, simpler thing. Then it doesn't seem like you're a controlling person who feels like you're her dad, right? So I recommend that to you. You have to realize that for every woman, she can never love you unless she loves herself. Now, this is challenging because most people don't love themselves. I don't say this in the sense of narcissism. I say this in the sense of you can watch their behavior. Within the Assassin, we have a 3 sentence Bible: be yourself, be good to yourself, be good to good people. Number one, be yourself. Number two, be good to yourself. Clearly, someone does not love themselves if they're not being good to themselves. How do we have evidence that they're not being good to themselves? They destroy their mind and memory with marijuana. They destroy their lungs and their very ability to maximize air and oxygen with cigarettes, nicotine, tobacco. They destroy their ability to be happy and to sleep well with alcohol. They destroy their brain with lack of sleep from excessive partying. Those are individuals who do not love themselves. They are at war with the self, destroying the self, which is a pity because the wicked society is attacking you as well. And they help the society destroy themselves. If they don't love themselves as a woman, as a female, how could they love you? If they don't love themselves and nourish themselves with good foods, exercise, appropriate amounts of sleep, vitamins, and all those good things, how could you expect that they would bring those good things to you when they won't even do it for themselves? And we are all me monsters caring about the self. So if we care very little about the self, certainly we don't care about others. If we don't have self-respect, we're not going to give you respect because we don't understand respect. So know that the woman cannot love you if she does not love herself. That is a reality you might have to bless her with because very few people are keen on that. William, very consistent, writes, peace to the saints. I was on a Muslim dating app and saw a great deal of women saying that they don't want to be housewives and don't want children. Thoughts? That's the funny thing about these religions. Increasingly, I move away from the religions because I find that those who practice them use it as culture rather than religion. They do not respect the word of God. Many of them have not even read their sacred text to learn the word of God. And they take these as social groups. They go to the masjid or the mosque for the community, but not for the actual word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is very sad to hear a Muslim woman basically suggesting that she would like to live as a Muslim man. But yes, I trust that you did see that. It is a pity, but you are more likely to find a good woman within the religion of Islam as opposed to out in the world. That is true, but do remember that the women on the dating apps are mostly leftovers. So you'd be wiser to join a masjid, talk to a sheikh, or meet some brothers there and get them to introduce you to their sister or their daughter, because the women on the dating apps are leftovers. Alexis writes, peace to the saints. What is the best way for me to support the good men in my life? Well, that's a very positive question that you ask. And I thank you for sharing that and also being a good example of a lady saint. I would look at the men who are most critical to you. And what I mean is that there must be a hierarchy to all things. I don't know your context of your age, etc., but let's say you're a mature woman of age 18 or better and you are dating a man. That man should be your priority and you should help him with his goals. He should, of course, have goals for you to help with. And secondarily, your father would be the next man you would look to assist in these matters. And then thirdly, your brothers would be the ones you would want to add your support to following that. But the key is that you must come under the influence or offer your support to men who are really pursuing goals, who are serious, and most importantly, they're good men, so that what you give to them, they will give you something back. The worst thing is to invest in someone who will not invest in you. I thank you for sharing that question and do keep in contact. I like that. Marcus writes, when laying down your rules to a woman about what you will and won't tolerate, have you ever been called controlling? If so, how do you handle it? Well, women will call you all sorts of things. Some they really feel, others are just saying to see how you'll react. But the truth is, you should not be fazed by their words because they're very talkative, which is to say, some of their words will have no real meaning at all because they didn't think before they spoke. And it is a shame upon any male who engages in such behavior where you're not thinking before you speak. So I'm not fazed by any of that. Secondly, I don't really lay it out as rules. I like to have a conversation. You should position yourself as a teacher, not as a warden. So, as a teacher, you should often ask questions and say, hey, what do you think about women conducting themselves in this way? Or what do you think about our relationship respecting this principle? And as you go through that conversation, you engage the educational process and you hear how she interprets these things and how she would apply it. That is the key, is asking her opinion and her thoughts and then taking the influence from there.